Welcome to Nasdaq Trade Talks. I'm Jill Malandrino, global markets reporter at Nasdaq. Joining us for this segment, we have Dr. Jill Nadaner, executive director with Safe Commanding Heights, a nonpartisan initiative dedicated to advancing critical supply chains for America's transportation and energy needs. Dr. Nadaner, it's great to have you with us. Welcome to Trade Talks.
Thank you very much. Glad to be here.
Thank you. And is the U.S.'s reliance on a global supply chain ultimately problematic?
Well, we in many ways helped start global supply chains after World War II. It's an advantage, assuming everyone plays by the same rules. An imbalance has developed over the last several decades with several waves of deindustrialization in the United States. So it is our contention that there is a certain number of things that need to be made in the U.S. in order to remain a healthy society.
And why is bringing manufacturing back to the U.S. important for average Americans?
Well, manufacturing has traditionally been one of the key routes toward a middle-class life. And not everything can traverse the globe. Some things need to be made here. We saw that very vividly with the corona crisis. Billions of dollars of syringes that were needed to administer vaccine and other important health needs. Almost all of them made in the PRC, People's Republic of China. That is inherently an unstable enterprise to make some of your most vital things in communist China.
So what does the U.S. government need to do to bring back some of this manufacturing to the U.S.?
Well, I think one thing is to replicate the success that we had with Operation Warp Speed for health supplies. We showed that we can manufacture a certain number of things in the U.S. We still have some of the leading technologies. I think the bipartisan infrastructure deal had supporters in each of the major parties. I think it's very important for the administration to press ahead, break ground, and open up some factories and build more capacity in the U.S. And then I think for the future, I think we need to look for blue-red, red-blue coalitions. Perhaps some of the deal is building more capacity in the U.S. While reducing carbon emissions. So those are things we can do, and maybe we have to look at tax policy to incentivize production, not just consumption.
Mm-hmm. So at the end of the day, do you think America is capable of having a manufacturing renaissance?
There's very little that 350 million Americans cannot do. We've shown that repeatedly in our history. We've been almost all the major inventions that animate modern life today have been invented in the U.S. So this is something we can do. We have energetic people. We have some of the best people. We have the most talent. We have the best university system. And we have states and localities that are eager for the manufacturing jobs.
Right. Well, Dr. Nadaner, let me ask you one more question, if I may. Of course, when it comes to U.S. manufacturing, cost, of course, is a hurdle that we have to face, and either it's going to get passed on to the consumer. And so, how do you think of that in terms of the cost and doing business in the U.S.? How do we rectify that?
Our labor costs are higher, although I would say that today, with the nature of technology, it's not quite the differential that it used to be. So there is some advantage to making things in East Asia, some advantage to Mexico, but there's also the cost of supply chains. So I'd say all told, and there's a fair amount of evidence on this from leading consultancies, the cost disadvantage to making the U.S. is not what it once was. So I think we can make a lot of the things here in key industries.
Okay, Dr. Nadaner, we appreciate the insight. Thanks for joining us on Trade Talks. I'm Jill Malandrino, global markets reporter at Nasdaq.
A pleasure. Thank you.